Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell, and you're listening to our show this week with Tom Crandell. It's a lot of collaborative efforts go into putting this thing on the radio, as well as Mr. Producer doing all that great, fine work over there at Access Vision and getting us on free TV, because he's a big supporter of the First Amendment, aren't you, Mr. Producer? Yes, you are. As usual, this microphone's brought to you by WBCK News Talk Radio, a new Town Square media station. They did get purchased, and there are some real big changes coming along, especially for our local listeners, terrestrial listeners, I think is how we'd call them, right?
Yeah.
The big hit morning show, the 9 a.m. morning show, which for years now has just been an hour, has been ramped up to 3 hours. They dropped Geraldo. So Geraldo will no longer be on this station starting tomorrow, actually. It's 9 to noon, live with Rank. Tune in. You will not be disappointed. A couple of things. The number, of course, is 441-9595, area code 269. If you happen to be listening in Kalamazoo, it's 269-488-9595. It's a free call. You're welcome to chime in. Throw your 2 cents in. 2 cents worth. As typical, I start with this day of military history, and we're going to do that, but even we're going to amp that up just a little bit. I'm sure some of you have heard about that 85-year-old American veteran detained by North Korea. And the article's right here. It seems that Merrill Newman, an 85-year-old retired executive from California, went to North Korea on a trip organized by a licensed tour group to fulfill a longtime desire to see the country where he had served as an infantry officer during the Korean War. I mean, that happens a lot. He was pulled off a plane October 26th as it was preparing to leave North Korea for Beijing. Apparently, one of his crimes came out when Mr. Newman was asked to speak with another North Korean without his traveling companion with him. Later, Mr. Newman told his traveling companion that the conversation had not gone well and he had a bad feeling about it. And it wasn't too long after that before they whisked him off the plane, and we didn't hear from him until November 9th. But now they've got him out mouthing these apologies. I've been guilty of a long list of indelible crimes against these people, the government and Korean people, as advisor to the special unit during the war. And he's really a pawn, and I think it's evident that we're getting pushed around. So let's help the president, okay? For once, let's all throw a shoulder behind this guy. Let's help the president. Let's give him a little nudge, because if you can grab a pencil and paper, I have a phone number for you. Now, some of you will write this down. Some of you won't. But the number is 202-456-1111. It's the White House's number. Call them tomorrow and ask for our administration to bow up, to man up a little bit. I mean, in this most recent Iranian deal they signed, this big deal that's going to save the world from everything, they let we had one of their scientists, nuclear scientists, in jail here. We let him out. We did a swap. And, this guy is just a pawn. But it would be fun, wouldn't it? Just call the White House and start haranguing them a little bit. Let this guy out. Go get this guy. Do something. I mean, we're supposed to be the world's most powerful nation. We sure aren't acting like it. Merrill Newman and his family would appreciate it. So see what you can do. 202-456-1111. This day in military history. It's kind of slim pickings today, actually. And actually, I think the most important one, or the best one, really kind of isn't militarily related. But 1941, the first Civil Air Patrol in the U.S. was organized. That's a group, guys and girls out there. It's a shadow group. They work out of airfields. They're volunteers. They're pilots. And when there are natural disasters or lost people, if you have, these people get up in the air. They put their lives at risk, and they're just civilians. They're not paid by anybody. And they're just volunteers. 1943, December 1st, 1943, the first operational use of the American P-51D Mustang is in a fighter sweep over occupied Belgium. And, of course, that Mustang was made famous by the Red Tails, Tuskegee Airmen. December 1st, 1947, the Marine Corps' first helicopter squadron was commissioned at Quantico. 1947, the United States Marine Corps. Semper Fi, guys. And this is kind of a sad one, December 1st, 1964. In two crucial meetings on this day and 2 days later at the White House, President Lyndon Johnson and his top-ranking advisors agree, after some debate, to a two-phase bombing plan for North Vietnam. And I read a little into this. I didn't include it here, and we won't. But basically, you had the doves arguing with the partridges. And it's just an example of how sometimes just government and these power brokers, which we'll touch on a little later in the show, sometimes they just don't think straight, and they get us in all kind of predicaments. 1969, December 1st, the U.S. government held its first draft lottery since World War II in 1942. And this one and last, it's kind of scary that this date in history is starting to include like years that I graduated from college, because that doesn't seem like all that long ago. December 1st, 1980, IBM delivered its first prototype PC to Microsoft. It seems that IBM selected Microsoft to create MS-DOS, the operating system for the first PC. Steve Ballmer arrived from Procter & Gamble as an assistant to Bill Gates. Paul Allen, I think he was another whiz at Microsoft, wasn't he? Paul Allen was, yeah. Bought the QDOS operating system, and that was an acronym for Quick and Dirty Operating System. Paul Allen bought that system from a rival company for $50,000. It was renamed MS-DOS and licensed to IBM. And the IBM 5150 PC standardized the marketplace. So today really was a date in history for what began to revolutionize and did revolutionize what we do, what we see, what we hear, what we eat. And now, look at it. It's a dinosaur. All right, we are going to a break. Number's 441-9595. Give us a call. We'll see you on the other side.
Be out there! Be out there! Be out there!
Time was, kids did what came naturally, spending free time running barefoot through the grass, wading knee-deep in streams, climbing to the tallest branch. But today, American kids are more likely found texting, watching TV, or gazing at a computer screen. They spend more than 7 hours in front of electronic media. Something essential has been lost: childhood's connection to the natural world. That's why National Wildlife Federation created the Be Out There movement. Kids move indoors causes a host of problems, from obesity to ADHD. But outdoor play can go a long way to improving kids' health, body, mind, and spirit. It helps them stay fit, enhances creativity and attention spans, and could even make them better students. Do your part. Be a part of Be Out There. There's a reason why they call it the great outdoors. Learn more at beoutthere.org.
Tonight, we are going to touch on some Econ 101. I got a Bigfoot update. Econ 401 Standard of Living. I had an interesting conversation with a good friend of mine the other day about an upper-class business executive living in Peru and what their living conditions were like. So, I've talked about standard of living before, and how, if you just take a quick global look at it, I got heat in my house, and I can go see a movie, but standard of living is measured in many different ways. We're going to touch base on that. There's a lesson from a holiday. Seems a bishop dressed up as a homeless man. He got some interesting things. I will actually spend a few minutes on Obamacare. There's some stuff going on in politics that'll be kind of neat. Foreign policy, a little scary these days with China. First up, though, is Econ 101. This is kind of, I saw this, and it's almost becoming a public service announcement. Econ 101. How many of you have gotten online and you're going to spend money with a company, but you have to agree to their terms of use? Do you ever read it? Really? Come on. Just Come on, Jeff.
Never.
You never read it. I'll bet none of you ever read it either. I can't say I ever have. I have some of the shorter ones, but when they're 10 pages long, it's like, oh my God, I just want to buy the wrench. That's all I want. Well, it seems, and it's all legal, but last year at Christmas time, a wife ordered her husband a Christmas present from the cleargear.com website. And it was promised to ship in time to arrive before Christmas, and it did not. There was a mix-up, and the order ended up getting canceled, and it just didn't work out. And not being truly vindictive woman, she went to their website where it said post comments. And she wasn't vitriolic. She didn't hurl any names or anything like that. But she eloquently explained what poor customer service she'd been given. And it was a number of months after that, actually, when her husband received a bill in the mail for $3,500 from cleargear.com. That it seems buried deep in the terms of use is something called a non-disparagement clause. Yes, a non-disparagement clause. And it prevented, if anybody who agreed to the terms of use, agreed not to post any negative comments about the company, or you would face a $3,500 fee. And, of course, what would if you out there in radio land and TV land, if you got a bill from, if this happened to you, and you got a bill from them for $3,500, what would your first inclination be? Now, some of you might just pitch it. It's like, just throw it away. It's junk mail. Others might make a phone call. Probably many would make a phone call, in which case you'd be told, I'm sorry, you owe the money. You agreed to terms of use. You checked it. And, I believe it's tort law. It's contract law. And apparently, so far, this fine's been upheld, or this fee. But look what they've been dragged into. They have lawyers now that are representing them. They're counter-suing Cleargear. Of course, that's the standard lawyer thing. You're suing me, I'm going to counter-sue you. And it's sucking the oxygen out of their lives. So Econ 101, folks, check the terms of use. I don't know how else to say it. A non-disparagement clause, I would think, would be its own line item. You might be able to find it highlighted in the terms. It might be a major category. I doubt very much because it's going to need some explanation. So it's going to be a category line. A quick scan of these retail sites, especially this time of year, it's Christmas season. People are shopping online. Econ 101, watch out what you check, because, or at least know what you're signing, and good luck with that. Econ 401, this is interesting, talking about standard of living, and really how hard it's seemingly it's hard to quantify standard of living, but we all have one. And it includes all different kinds of activities and stuff that we, like George Carlin made famous, all our stuff, right? That's our standard of living. It's how we get through each day. What crutches do we lean on? We lean on our car. We lean on heat and electricity, and those are kind of fundamental ones. Well, I saw this article. There are starving Syrian rebels inside Damascus in neighborhoods controlled by the rebels. It's brutal over there. Their standard of living is taking it on the chin. But they killed a lion in a zoo, and they ate it. And there are pictures of the men butchering the animal. It's visibly emaciated, so it hadn't been eating. And it was taken from this Yabba-Dabba-Doo Zoo, whatever, I can't pronounce it. It's a terrible thing, but everybody in the world has their own standard of living too, and we have ours and they have theirs, and then there are people who live in between us. Take, for example, an upper class aerospace engineer living in Peru. She's absolutely upper middle class. A good friend of mine travels the world with aerospace issues. And big meetings down in Peru, and there was a social gathering after the day's activities, and they ended up at this lady's house. And Dale thought he'd be coming into, some substantially nice things. He was quite amazed at what he did find, because what he did find was a very small, essentially an apartment. It was a home, but it was very, very small. Kitchen appliances were not on steroids. It was just the opposite. They were shrunk down. Everything was small, and he'd had conversations with her, but this was her standard of living. No big yard, no attached garage. It didn't have an exercise room. Didn't have a media center room. It didn't have a big living room where people rarely sit. It was a very functional home. It was very warm and comfortable. But she works in that upper class eco stratus, and this is the max she could afford. And so when you hear things like inflation, and when you hear things, disposable income is falling, those are all precursors to a trending downward standard of living. As your disposable income gets smaller, either because of Obamacare turning you into part-time workers, or you're having to pay more for health insurance or more in taxes, whether it be property taxes or sales or anything else, it all affects our standard of living. And unfortunately, I think it's death by 1,000 cuts, that maybe by the time we realize what we've lost, it might be too late. And I think that's the biggest fear. On a side note, we're going to change topics. Mr. Producer, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who watches the show on Axis Vision. Jeff and I are flattered that you would tune in and listen in. I would invite you to pay attention right on your calendar. Sundays at 6. It's live. You're welcome to call us, 441-9595. But apparently the show is now getting 2 fixed time slots up in Cadillac. So any of you Cadillac listeners or viewers, Saturday at 11 a.m., Wednesday at 3 p.m. on CCTV Channel 98. You're free to continue to turn in. Now, a lesson from the holiday. This is interesting. My brother, Dan, actually told me about this. This is Taylorsville, Utah. This comes from the Associated Press. Members of a Mormon congregation in a Salt Lake City suburb encountered someone they thought was a homeless man at church on Sunday. What they did not know was the man was a bishop for their church. At least 5 people asked this man, his name was David Musselman, to leave the church property. Some gave him money, and most were indifferent. He said he disguised himself to teach his congregation a lesson about compassion. And let's see, he used a makeup artist to make it more convincing. The main thing I was trying to get across was we don't need to be so quick to judge. Wouldn't that be good advice? Many went out of their way to purposefully ignore me, and they wouldn't even make eye contact. I'd approach them and say, "Happy Thanksgiving." Many of them, I wouldn't ask for any food or any kind of money, and their inability to even acknowledge me being there was very surprising. The reaction that touched, this is interesting, because the kingdom of heaven belongs to the children, right? Yeah, that's right. I was impressed by the children. I could see in their eyes they wanted to do more. Bless their little hearts. Musselman, who told only his second counselor that he would be disguised as a homeless man, walked to the pulpit during the service. He finally revealed his true identity and took off his wig, fake beard, and glasses. There was a tremendous shock value that he didn't anticipate. Some of the people in the congregation stated later, I started feeling ashamed because I didn't say hello to this man. He was dirty. He was crippled. He was old. He was mumbling to himself. He didn't intend to embarrass anybody, but he wanted to make them think about compassion. And what a greater time of year We should do it year-round, but now it's just getting commercialized. I feel compassion for Mr. Producer here. That doesn't mean I'm going to buy him a Christmas present, but I guess, friends and families, I guess you do buy Christmas presents out of compassion. We've got just enough time to fit in what little I want to talk about the Obamacare fiasco. The interesting thing stuck out that in this website fix, one of the fixes is as you're stumbling through the site and you get kicked off, it says you're being put into an online waiting room for signups. You'll get an email telling you when to log on and actually complete the transaction. Really? That reminds me of the Secretary of State's office, the Department of Motor Vehicles. You come in, you go to the person there at the triage counter, and she says, "What do you want?" "I want new plates." She writes you up, she says, "Here's a number, go sit down." And then you wait. And I don't know, I think the irony is just too good. It's too rich that they're trying to control the flow to the website by putting people in online waiting rooms. Unbelievable, isn't it? An online waiting room to sign up for health insurance. And, of course, the wheels are just totally coming off that whole thing. Now, I'm coming up on a break here in a minute because I do want to talk about, this fits into the politics segment, which we'll start after the bottom of the hour here. If any of you have heard of the Independent Payment Advisory Board, or the IPAB, you'll want to listen up. It's a very interesting group. This group's being spawned from the Affordable Care Act, but it is shenanigans at its highest form. And in that same vein, politics, I'd like to know if any of you saw any protesters at Walmart over this Thanksgiving holiday. We were supposed to have some protesters at Walmart, the compliments of the National Labor Relations Board. And then we also have, in politics, we have some poor cancer patient now being audited by the IRS because he went public with the fact that Obamacare caused his policy to get canceled. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Be out there. Be out there.
Time was, kids did what came naturally, spending free time running barefoot through the grass, wading knee-deep in streams, climbing to the tallest branch. But today, American kids are more likely found texting, watching TV, or gazing at a computer screen. They spend more than 7 hours in front of electronic media. Something essential has been lost: childhood's connection to the natural world. That's why National Wildlife Federation created the Be Out There movement. Kids move indoors causes a host of problems, from obesity to ADHD. But outdoor play can go a long way to improving kids' health, body, mind, and spirit. It helps them stay fit, enhances creativity and attention spans, and could even make them better students. Do your part. Be a part of Be Out There. There's a reason why they call it the great outdoors. Learn more at beoutthere.org.
Hello, everyone. My name's Tom Crandell. You're listening to This Week with Tom Crandell. You're free to call in. The number's 269-441-9595. Although we are live, I think much of the city is tucking themselves in for the Sunday night, getting ready for tomorrow. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for listening. WBCK News Talk Radio does a great job around here. They did get bought. The changes are coming. I guess Huckabee's going to go by the wayside. Geraldo's going by the wayside. But if you're happy to hear about Geraldo, you're welcome to call me too. I think he's not red. He's not blue. He's red, white, and blue, right? I think that's his moniker anyway. All right. The Independent Payment Advisory Board was created by the Affordable Care Act. And it is a board tasked with managing healthcare dollars, managing the expenses of healthcare dollars. which sounds like something you should have in a bill like this, right? Made up of 15 people that are appointed by the executive branch, or possibly them and Health and Human Services. Secretary Kathleen Sebelius. Anyway, they are appointed. They're not. There's no confirmation hearings. Especially, it's just coincidental, isn't it, that the Senate just did that nuclear option thing, which now they only require 51 votes. At such a time when these 15 people need to be appointed. So, hold on to your seats, because those appointees are going to be some big-time names in the group of people that want single payer and that want to advocate larger and larger roles for central government. Well, a couple things about the IPAB that isn't being widely talked about. And I don't know how Congress can do this. I think maybe some of the smarter thinkers, like the constitutional attorneys like Mark Levin, this is how they know this. I don't believe a Congress can pass a law and have in that law something like this IPAB, and then to be able to legislate that there is no judicial review for any of their actions, that they're insulated from any of the checks and balances that are laid out by our Constitution. It's true, this IPAB board, this group of 15 people, are absolutely immune from any judicial review. Now, I would hope that no one out there would think that's a good thing. But even if there's one person out there that thinks that's probably good so that they can be independent, and it has also been legislated in the same Affordable Care Act that in 2017, for an 8-month period in 2017, that is the only window available for future Congresses to repeal the IPAB board. That if it's not repealed before this window, or that it cannot be repealed before the window, in other words, it was insulated for the kickoff of Obamacare, it was insulated from repeal until 2017. And then there begins an 8-month window where the Congress, the sitting Congress in that 8-month window in 2017, is the only Congress that we'll ever have available to us that can repeal this board, or clip its ears back if you prefer that, or rein it in if you prefer that. After the 8-month window closes, it's been legislated that this IPAB can never go away. It can never be done with. Now that cannot be constitutional. With no oversight, with no recourse, it's not called a death panel. But Mark Halperin recently wrote a book, and he just got in Dutch with the liberals last week for admitting on the Mark Salzberg show that, rationing is built into this system. Rationing is nothing more. You ration at home. All of us ration every day with the money that's in our wallet and the money that's in our checking account. We're making decisions. Do I do A, or do I do B, or do I do C? We ration every day. That's exactly what IPAB is going to do with health care dollars. And when Mr. Producer decides not to go to KFC for dinner tonight, okay, he is not spending money at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now, I don't think they'll go out of business because he didn't buy dinner there tonight. But the whole point is, if IPAB is prioritizing the healthcare dollars, that means some procedures are not going to get approved. We have a caller on line 1. What's your name?
I'm Pat.
Hey, Pat, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
Bedford.
Oh, Pat in Bedford. Man, good to hear from you. What's going on with you?
Oh, you leave my president alone.
Well, we have to be nice and say he's everyone's president, right?
You got that. How can you say it's not constitutional?
Oh, to legislate like that?
Yeah, I'd just like to know what Obama's got on Roberts. Justice Roberts. He must have something. Probably spies picked something up for him.
Who was it? Of course, conspiracy theorists are a dime a dozen. But, how you can get a major Supreme Court justice, a right-winger, to do that. But I'll tell you what, this whole thing is nothing but a Pandora's box in this iPad. How old are you, Pat?
I'm 60.
Okay. Do you need any new knees or anything?
I'm coming on soon, yes.
Well, I'm wondering if IPAB, they're going to start to ration our healthcare dollars to treat as many people as they can. That means some people will not get treated. And of course, if the statistics are like in England and Canada, they don't live as long, and people are dying sooner, and they don't get those things. And apparently, you support that, Pat. Shame on you.
No, I don't support that crap.
I didn't think you did, Pat. The people you talk to, do they vote? Do your friends vote, Pat?
Well, about half of them, I would say, when I was at work and we would talk politics. And what I can't believe is why like 80% of the Jewish state in America voted for him.
Yeah, look what he's doing to them. You know what? I had mentioned that did you hear that the IPAB has no judicial review?
Yeah, I heard you say that's unconstitutional.
Well,
there'd be riots in the street.
The leader, the top dog in the executive branch, the president, he has judicial oversight. There's judicial oversight over the president. But the fact that this board doesn't have any, does that make that board more important than the president?
Well, when your number's up, I guess it does.
Pat, thanks for calling in, and really thanks for listening. We really appreciate you tuning in.
You have a great day.
You have a great week coming up. I appreciate you tuning in. Pat from Bedford. Yeah, the president has judicial oversight, but IPAB doesn't. I'm telling you, this is scary. Yeah, this is really scary, but that's it for Obamacare. More fun stuff to talk about is politics. I snagged a couple things off the World Information platter, and it just seems like there is an incredible amount of shenanigans going on, very surreptitiously too, I might add, meaning sneaky. And it spans not only Congress, but the bureaucracy, and it also, in terms of the bureaucracy, we're talking about a National Labor Relations Board, just a board, kind of like an IPAB board, really. That's what it is. National Labor Relations Board, Independent Payment Advisory Board. Well, we got a new board. Well, topping the list of shenanigans, and this comes from CBS. I think they did a darn good job on this one. Steve Kroft. It was a 60 Minutes investigative report. And he did this with the Government Accountability Institute president. He's a Breitbart News senior editor-at-large, Peter Schweitzer. And they delved into this, and they revealed how leadership political action committees, we call them PACs, leadership PAC loopholes allow members of Congress to convert campaign cash into lavish lifestyle upgrades for themselves and their family members. And it's all legal. And it's shameful. And it just reeks of ruling class. Because none of this, we don't get any of this because we're not politicians. Once you get elected to Congress, now you can start to decide which loopholes you want to stick your big toe into. Does that feel warm enough? Yeah, I think I like that one. According to Schweitzer, it's another example, unfortunately, where the rules that apply to the rest of us don't really apply to the members of Congress. The report which can contain material from his forthcoming book, revealed embarrassing and outlandish instances of cronyism and self-enrichment by members of Congress, despite the fact that funds from leadership PACs are supposed to go to help elect fellow members of one's own political party. Lax campaign laws allow lawmakers to turn their leadership PACs into private slush funds to fund just about anything they want. And when we talk about lax campaign laws, I mean, how many times have we had McCain-Feingold campaign refinance, or McCain-Feingold? That was campaign finance reform. And and actually it flies in the face of those who say, well, Obamacare is it. You can't change it. Once you pass a law, you can't change it. Well, of course, that's nonsense, because we've had major changes with the same campaign law of years and years and years. And look what it's gotten us. It's really, really discouraging when you think about it. I mean, I know a lot of you are out there are very successful, but you know, many work very, very, you know, it's just their lot in life. They work very, very hard. Maybe they make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, maybe $25,000 a year. Get this. And what kind of perks do you have available to you to play the game in your favor? Now, the first one up is Representative Rob Andrews. He happens to be a Democrat from New Jersey. He hired his wife, who is a lawyer and associate law dean at Rutgers, to be a political Action Committee compliance officer for his PAC. She approved the use of donor dollars to fly her husband, and their 2 daughters to Edinburgh, Scotland for a wedding at a posh resort. Andrews' leadership PAC paid $16,575 in airfare. His campaign committee picked up the rest of the tab, which was slightly under $14,000. Schweitzer says Andrews' leadership PAC even paid for the wedding gift, which was china from Bloomingdale's. Andrews and his wife even merged a campaign event with their daughter's graduation party, allowing them to combine the costs of the 2 events. And now, when Steve Croft confronted the Democrat New Jersey congressman, Andrews said, I think we should take a look at having clearer rules at what they can and cannot be spent for. I'd be for that. Andrews claimed he could not speak more on the matter because of a pending House ethics investigation. Even though Croft told him, the committee told him they were fine with Andrews speaking out about the matter, but he'd like to say more, but he can't because he's involved in an ethics investigation. Representative Gregory Meeks, Democrat from New York, he's small time in this thing. He better get with the program because he's missing a lot of dollars. He only attempted to use $6,230 in campaign funds to pay for a personal trainer. Now, his staff claimed that using campaign money for a fitness instructor is a legitimate expense because gym visits alleviate stress from Meeks' official duties. So, none of you have stress that rises to the level of finagling the rules so you can get a trainer. We don't have access to that, do we? The investigation also revealed that Meeks has used $35,000 from his leadership PAC on NFL games. They didn't elaborate. Okay, he likes football. Show of hands, everybody. Who's been to a NFL game in the last year? Who can afford it? Any hands out there? A few, maybe? Looks like Mr. Meeks makes most of them. This next one is disgusting. Senator Saxby Chambliss, Republican, Georgia. This guy, he could teach Meeks some lessons. His leadership PAC dropped $107,752 at the Breakers Resort in Palm Beach during the 2012 election cycle. That is over 3 times as much money as he gave the National Republican Senatorial Committee to get fellow Republicans elected, which is the whole purpose of the leadership PAC in the first place. One year, Chambliss spent nearly 1/3 of his entire PAC funds on golf, limousines, and at least 1 private jet ride. His leadership PAC also picked up $26,814 dinner tab at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. 26 grand at Ruth's Chris? Really? And his leadership PAC also picked up a $10,344 bill at Pebble Beach. Now, it turns out there's another angle on this campaign, that you can loan your campaign money. And this 60-minute special revealed how members of Congress exploit a self-loan loophole that allows politicians to loan their own campaigns money at high interest rates and then let the loans linger to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in passive streams of profit for themselves. I give you Representative Grace Napolitano, Democrat out of California. She has bagged at least $294,245 since 1998 by loaning her congressional campaign money at interest rates up to 18%, a scheme that effectively funneled campaign contributor donations into her personal bank account. After numerous attempts to interview Napolitano, Croft finally confronted her outside a Hispanic caucus meeting. Quote, she told us that as a woman and a minority, banks wouldn't lend her money, so she had to withdraw $150,000 from an investment account to lend it to her campaign, said Croft. Croft then questioned, see, this is what I like about him. Although he's with a heavily left-leaning media outlet, CBS, this is the kind of investigative reporting, if we could get, I don't see Fox talking about this. Croft then questioned why she would charge 18% interest. And he remarked, that's what the mafia gets. And she says, it isn't like I've really profited, said Napolitano. I still live in the same house. I drive a small car. I am not a billionaire or a millionaire for that matter. No, you wouldn't need to. An extra $30,000 a year for 20 years? No, that's not going to make you a millionaire, but is that not going to solve a few problems? How's your standard of living there, Miss Grace? How's your standard of living? Mr. Saxby Chambliss, you piece of dirtbag. I got to watch my language on him. Greg, he's a Republican, for crying out loud. Setting a terrible example. That's why I would never join his stinking party. Gregory Meeks, Democrat New York, Rob Andrews, how are their standard of livings doing in this day and age compared to yours? And you got an opportunity to do something about next November, next election cycle. And I will do my damnedest to keep you reminded of these shenanigans that are going on. Now, a side note on that, I had a second congressman, Guy Vanderjack, a second cousin who was a U.S. congressman. His name was Guy Vanderjack. And I know firsthand from my brother's account, he goes to Washington, D.C. My brother's in Norfolk, and my cousin's in Norfolk, stationed there. They go into D.C. to get a tour of the Capitol from our cousin. Pretty cool, right? So they go to where Guy lives, and he's got two cars in the garage. One's an old station wagon, and one's a beautiful Cadillac. Well, they take the Cadillac around D.C., and Guy actually joked, I take the station wagon home when I go home. When he drives to Michigan, he takes the station wagon. But the 60 Minutes report also revealed that members of Congress are permitted to use leadership PAC money to hire their own family members. As Croft and Schweitzer point out, most corporations have nepotism laws that prevent the hiring of family members. Why do these laws not apply to these people who are running our country into the ground? We let that happen. It's on us. It's absolutely on us. Now, and while congressional rules bar family members from serving on a congressman's official staff, there's the nuance there. Lawmakers are free to hire family to serve on their campaigns. And is this news? Show of hands out there if this is news to you, that these people are in constant campaign mode. Constant campaign mode. They're always scratching for money. They're always doing something on the campaign, preparing for the next one or licking their wounds from the last one. And this guy, I've lost a lot of respect for him, although I guess the laws don't prohibit it. I don't know what the total wages were, but former Representative Ron Paul, Republican, Texas, put his daughter, his grandson, his daughter's mother-in-law grandson-in-law, granddaughter, and another relative. 6 family members in total on his campaign payroll. The Paul progeny received a combined $304,599. No, they're not millionaires, but somebody just got written a $50,000. There's 6 members, $300,000. That's $50,000 apiece. They got $50,000 for doing what? Answering the phones? Well, let's see what Rodney Alexander, if you got any listeners, Louisiana, Representative Rodney Alexander, Republican Louisiana, about action Schweitzer reports on this book. Alexander paid his 2 daughters over $130,000 in combined expenses for working on his campaign, which he won with an overwhelming 78% of the vote. Croft asked Alexander what his daughters did, and this is the answer he gave. They do everything that others do for other campaigns. Somebody has to do that work. I kept it with someone I can trust. If one can't trust their daughter, then who can they trust? That quote reminds me of the in The Wizard of Oz, the magician, the guy who ended up being the Wizard of Oz, the obfuscation and the sleight of hand. The question was, what did your daughters do? At this Alexander, he's good. He's very good at what he does. They do everything that others do for other campaigns, which means answering phones, stuffing envelopes. But we don't know how many hours they worked. They do everything that others do for other campaigns. Croft and Schweitzer agreed that leadership PACs are hotbeds of cronyism and self-enrichment. The abuse is substantial and pretty widespread. And Schweitzer agreed and Croft agreed that's precisely how the establishment likes it. Folks, we are in a world of hurt. Our leaders are, they lambasted those IRS people for the big Las Vegas soirees, the wine next to the hot tub. They lambaste them. They go in front of the camera, media whores. They go in front of the camera, and then they do this. And, you know, a lot of this PAC money is public information. With any bit of delving, you can find out all kinds of things about your representative PACs, who's giving them money. I saw on Fred Upton's website once of where all his money comes from. That's quite interesting. And then, so that's the shenanigans on the congressional side, both parties. Something most recently has been happening, though, and it started really with, it turns out, major media organizations, now this is out of the UK Telegraph. We're not going to get, it's basically major media organizations protest against being shut out of the president's events in favor of official photographers. John Swain, New York, Barack Obama's White House has been accused of producing Soviet-style propaganda by press photographers who are furious at being denied access to the president. His aides routinely block independent photogs from capturing him at work, and then later distributing flattering pictures shot by Pete Souza, his official photographer. During a tense meeting, the practice was described by Doug Mills, a veteran photographer of the New York Times. It's just like TASS, the Soviet Union state news agency. There have been more than 30 major U.S. media organizations and leading press photographer unions have protested Mr. Obama from doing this in an open letter. They claim journalists are routinely being denied the right to photograph or videotape. And we got a call, and this is going to be the last one. We got about a minute or so. What's your name?
This is Jason. Good evening.
Good evening, Jason. What's on your mind?
Well, you had just mentioned the fact that there were photographers complaining they're not given a legitimate chance to take photos.
Right.
And I've been, doing a lot of research trying to make sure that everything I'm telling people is legit, because it's easy to get frauded with some of these blogs and stories out there.
Right.
But there is... you had mentioned conspiracy theories earlier, and they're only conspiracy theories if they're true. But you look at some of these photos that have been released throughout his administration, and they honestly look like they're photoshopped. And I'm not the only person out there saying this. You can look into it.
Well, guess what? This article, this Times guy, New York Times. This is from the New York Times now. The old gray lady, as surely as if they were placing a hand over a journalist's camera lens. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
It seems that it says they've been on the very first day of Mr. Obama's presidency. He retook the oath of office behind closed doors after stumbling over his words during his inauguration ceremony. They're laundering. They're laundering the activities. Now, I got to give credit.
I questioned that right from the beginning, the day that happened.
Well, I'll tell you what, the USA Today and McClatchy newspapers are refusing to publish handout photographs, so we're going to need more of that. Jason, we're coming to the end of the show. I want to thank you for listening. Catch us on
fine.
Access Vision.
Excellent show tonight.
Thanks very much. And, well, that was very nice of Jason, and I appreciate him calling in. We're going to touch more on this transparency thing because we can't take this ruling class anymore. Guys, have a great week.